Okay, Oliver, we have started recording. Hello, guys. This is Daniel from HyperNym. I'm the IoT Growth Manager over here, and I am so excited to see all of you over here at this very great day. So, joining me today is Olivier Bloch. He's IoT Advisor and the IoT influencer. You want to reach out if you have any questions or anything related to IoT. Before we start with this podcast, just a couple of things that this is our second podcast for the year, and this is a very special podcast because we are celebrating World IoT Day. As you know, today is 9th April, and every year the global tech community comes together to honor the transformative power of IoT. IoT is basically a technology that seamlessly integrates into our daily lives. And it's not just us, it also revolutionizes different industries, and it basically just enhances the way we interact with each other. Like I mentioned, this is a very special day, and the IoT Day was basically established in 2010 by the IoT Council, and basically it just serves as an open invitation for different innovators, thinkers, and different enthusiasts to just discuss in discussions, just to share some different insights, explore different potential of IoT. What's been really great is that IoT takes you from like smart homes to industrial based, many different solutions, and how we can optimize those resources. So this podcast is tailored to that, and I could not be more excited to have Oliver Bosch with us. Um, Hi Oliver, how
Hey,
are you doing?
I'm good. What about you?
I'm great as well. Talking about Oliver, Oliver has a very rich experience in IoT. It spans um, 10 to 15 years, from embedding real-time development to leading different roles in Azure IoT at Microsoft. And most prominently, he has been the host of IoT Show. It's a widely popular show on YouTube, something which I also saw when I came and learned about IoT as well. How are you, Oliver? How's it going?
Good. I'm doing great. Yeah. So I was doing the math, and I've been in that industry for 25 years and more, and counting. So I
You don't
started
look
my
that old,
career
Oliver.
as an embedded real-time developer. I was doing assembly, C work on real-time OSs for telematics
Nice,
systems, for printing machines, for robotics, and I specialized on the Microsoft embedded technologies, and
nice.
became a technology advocate for Microsoft friends. And that was like 19 years ago. Spent a couple of years advocating for Microsoft Windows embedded technologies and Windows mobile technologies across Europe. And then I moved to the US, where I joined the Windows embedded product team. So I spent
Nice.
17 years total with Microsoft. I did the Windows embedded. Then I did a little bit of time, 3 years with MS OpenTech, doing open source, open standards. And then I spent 7 years with the Azure IoT group from its inception until a couple of years ago. And these days, I do IoT advising. I have the chance of hosting the IoT show that I created when I was at Microsoft, and that they graciously let me continue on my own, after I left. And yeah, so I'm doing IoT advising. I also have a hat which is director for a partner director for a company called Thing Zero, where we do
Nice, nice.
approach IoT integration from the perspective of security and zero trust, which is a key topic of many discussions when it comes to IoT. So yeah, so that's my background, and about IoT Day. I love the idea of spending a day, like my birthday and my kid's birthday, and we celebrate someone or
Absolutely.
something, a specific day. And it's not that we need that specific day to talk about it, but it's a good excuse to do a little retrospective, a little, thinking about what it holds for the future and where it goes. So I think it's a perfect day to be here on this podcast. Thanks for the
Absolutely.
invitation to talk about it.
No, no worries. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with you. I was just wondering that how did you came into like YouTube and into podcasting? I mean, that's completely different from what you have been doing
Yeah.
initially, and not many of us do it. Like they literally shift from technical to content creation. So
Yeah.
how's that journey so far? How was the journey? Yeah.
Yeah. So interestingly, so just to make sure people know that, that's the visible tip or part of the iceberg. So what I'm doing, my main job is advising companies on IoT technology and strategy. Another part is advising these IoT companies on technical content creation and developer engagement, right? So that's the part where you can see more of me when it comes to YouTube and LinkedIn and things like that. But to your question about how I came to it, I was a developer in the industry when I was hired by Microsoft to be a developer evangelist. That's the way they were calling us at the time. And I was like, hey guys, I've never done anything public, right? I did some public speaking, in small rooms for training other engineers. And so they were like, no, you'll be perfect, no worries about that, and we'll train you. And so they did that for a couple of years, trained me on social media, on presence on
Nice.
stage and talking at big events. By teaching me, I mean, they put me in front of big audiences day one. So I remember very vividly one of my first public speaking opportunities was at a mobile and embedded developer conference. I had to present a new line of product called the Windows Embedded Point of Service (POS), and I was thrown in a room with 250 attendees, and it was like, "Hey, do your demo and do your speech." I was like,
Gosh.
"Oh shoot!" And I barely
How did
spoke
it went?
English. I had a
Yeah.
decent English, but it was not as good as it is today. So that was a very interesting experience. And then I came to, create the IoT show, when I was with the Azure IoT team. And the idea there was to say, hey, we need to have something where we educate people on how to do IoT right. Not just to talk about Microsoft products. At the time, my idea was not to talk only about Microsoft products. It was to illustrate with Microsoft products how to do IoT right. What were the good practices? What were
Yeah.
the good solutions out there? And so promote things that sometimes were not at all about Microsoft. I remember talking about AWS IoT and other things, and I never got in trouble for that. So I guess I was doing the right thing, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Speaking about on these lines, can you share your perspective on the significance of IoT and the community and the advancements we have seen so far? You might agree, like we have come a long way in IoT as well, from M2M devices. Now we are like on the brink of 5G. In
Yeah.
US, you already have 5G. So, what's your perspective on this? I mean, so many advancements. Where do you see?
Yeah. So a lot of advancements. To me, IoT is a set of technology. Is an ensemble of technologies that help us connect the physical world to the digital one, in many different ways. And that's I think something that just needs. It's not that it just needs to be celebrated. It needs to be talked about even more these days than it used in the past. In the past, it was a buzzword, right? People talked about IoT, needed to have IoT everywhere, right? That's something that, you had, even if you didn't understand what it meant, it was that smart thermostat, smart thing, IoT something, right? These days, we don't talk about IoT that much. And I've heard the question many times, is IoT dead? And I personally think, and I see on a day-to-day basis, that not only is it not dead, but it's actually now, I would say, graduated to becoming a pervasive technology that you see everywhere, or that actually you don't see everywhere. It's hidden behind the curtains. It's something that is the infrastructure, that is the background of a solution now presented itself with a different name. And we don't talk about IoT. We talk about the solutions. We talk about asset tracking. We talk about remote monitoring. We talk about different kind of solutions that are leveraging IoT and other technologies like AI to
Yeah.
implement end-to-end solutions. And I think it's a very positive thing, because that means that it's an immature technology that has been used in the industry to add value and doesn't really need to have its own buzzword. And on the other hand, it's important to me to talk about it. And this IoT Day, you were asking about the significance, is a good excuse for that. A good excuse to bring it back in the front of the conversation and explain where it is at, where it's going, what it's going to help grow as well, right? We're talking a lot about AI these days. There won't be
Yeah.
any AI or physical AI without IoT. And that's something that needs to have its own spotlight from time to time. And the IoT Day for me is a good opportunity.
Absolutely. You talked about, integrating different devices. I would like your take on, like, what do you think companies should like first consider when they're starting their IoT journey? I believe it ties with digital transformation. Are there any, fundamental steps or frameworks you could recommend, or if a company is taking a step towards digital transformation, what's the first thing they should do? Like, uh,
Yes. Well, I would the shameless plug of saying, watch the IoT show to learn more about it. That's your first step. Anyways, jokes aside, I think companies, from what I'm seeing, are still jumping too fast into very complex scenario and implementation.
yeah,
IoT is not simple. IoT presents many different aspects, many different dimensions. There's the connectivity, there's the security, there is the scalability. There's like a bunch of things you need to consider and take into account. There's a hardware that's been,
yeah.
dispatched and deployed somewhere in the field. You need to maintain that. You need to update that. There are so many considerations that it's something that can become overwhelming really fast. And too often customers forget about why they are doing that. Why are they trying to IoTify a solution?
Absolutely.
What value are they trying to bring? What kind of processes are they trying to optimize or enhance? What kind of new line of business are they trying to create? So I definitely urge companies to slow down, start small with something which is not too complex or sophisticated, validate that it adds real value, that you're going somewhere before investing in the complex part of it, before very often, hiring new personnel that have the right skill set, or establishing partnerships with other companies that propose an IoT platform or a set of IoT solutions and start integrating all of that. So step by step, validate first that you have a use case and that IoT is really going to bring something to the table. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you don't need to connect things. Sometimes you don't need to have a cloud backend. Sometimes you just need to have some smart software running on an embedded device and you're good to go. So you really need to
On that
not.
note, however, yeah, can you share some real life examples of how integration of IoT and even now AI has like resulted in some very awesome outcomes, and any applications, especially in
Yeah.
sectors like transportation or logistics?
Yeah, totally, totally. That's a good topic to cover. The how AI mixed with IoT or
Yeah.
leveraging IoT can really add value. And you're right, it's good to talk about concrete scenarios. So in the realm of asset tracking, there's a good example. I had a chat recently with a company uh, called Newton, and they do that technology of shrinking machine learning models to a very tiny form that allows them to run on microcontrollers, tinier ones. And they have this demo of Newton running on a motion sensor itself on a battery that is attached as a tag onto packages that are transported. And that thing is able
Oh,
to identify in real time what's going on. Is it being, transported in a car? Is it being carried by some human? Is it falling? Did it just have a hard fall? So it's not just about its geolocation. It's now also about the state of the package, and so you can now deliver as a new value add to your product, to your asset tracking solution, some more information to the customer. You can also make sure you have some chains of custody that are verified, that are checked and monitored in real time, simply with AI added to a little tiny sensor running on a battery. So this is a good example of that. Another example, which is maybe more well known, which is self-driving vehicles. We start seeing that in the form of taxis, in some streets in San Francisco and other places. But we need to start thinking about the industrial applications. The self-roaming robots in a factory floor or in a warehouse, public transportation that is automated. We don't see that very often. We don't realize it is, but like the subway, for example, in Paris, the latest lines of subway don't have any driver. They are actually just with
All automated.
driverless, and they're just controlled remotely. And there's a bunch of AI going in there, in addition to all the IoT sensors and actuators. So these are concrete examples of scenarios in transportation or in asset tracking, where you can see where AI can add value by allowing to do more smart things at the edge, on the sensors, on the devices themselves, without relying on connectivity, but also offering the connectivity that allows you to do that remote monitoring, remote tracking, remote control of these assets and these systems.
And the best part is like it also gives you the freedom to do more from those devices as well. You can like add more devices such as temperature sensors or humidity sensors, and even more sensors just to get
Yep.
more data,
Yep.
and that will like really provide you with more valuable insight about how you can like track or maybe manage that device or
Yeah.
that product. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that makes
that's
sense.
like,
But once again, Daniel, you need to think about what you're trying to achieve. So you want to add a temperature sensor on that device that is a asset tracking device. Great, because maybe you want to monitor a cold chain and make sure that your goods that are being transported are staying under a certain temperature, right? So that's a good example. Just don't add sensors for the sake of adding sensors and gathering more data, because you'll realize really rapidly that this has a cost. There's a hardware cost, there's an energy consumption cost, there's a data transport cost. When you send information from a sensor to some gateway and to some cloud, that has a cost as well. And so if you don't recoup that cost with added value, it's kind of moot, right? You don't do it if you don't have an actual use case that is worth the investment. And that's super important. You can do more things, but you don't have to do more things all the time.
absolutely. I'm gonna pivot to another topic, not another topic, but another angle over here. That let's talk about different challenges and different issues that can happen while adopting IoT solutions. So can you just tell me very briefly, like especially from security infrastructure point of view,
Yep.
what are the primary challenges organizations might face when they're like implementing these solutions? You mentioned very efficiently, like don't just add more sensors, don't just add more solutions just for the sake of adding solutions. That's perfect, but how can we like effectively navigate these hurdles?
Yeah, so some of the challenges or hurdles I'm seeing, customers facing are very often related to complexity. When we talk about security, very often it's the security is not the problem, it's the securing a solution that is the problem, because of its complexity, because of all its moving parts, because of the hybrid nature of IoT solutions, where you have part of your solution that is running at the edge, somewhere that is physically accessible by eventually someone who has bad intention, and running on sometimes legacy software that you
Yeah,
might not be able to update, or change or modify. And so complexity to me is definitely the big hurdle, the big problem that customers are facing. Trying to apply concepts from the world of IT or cloud down to the edge, down to the IoT infrastructure is not working like systematically and seamlessly. Another aspect which is really interesting, that people are starting to face is when they want to deploy AI at the edge, they rapidly realize that they need to be able to update these models. And these models are not just a few bytes, right? They are the equivalent of a firmware update, something that is not trivial to deploy over the air. We know firmware updates or device updates on our phones, on devices that we're used to, and that's already something that is not instant. Now imagine on a tinier device that has a slower bandwidth, sometimes a network solution that is not large bandwidths like Wi-Fi or something. It could be very few bits per second versus a huge amount of data you can transfer to a phone device. You now are in a position where you need to update software on these kind of devices, and that's not easy to do over the year. And that's something that lots of people are in a right way, trying to tackle before even considering deploying AI at the edge. They kind of know that it's going to work and solve problems. They kind of know that it will enable new scenarios, but they also kind of know that they will need to have this update capability. And so they're looking at that problem first. And that's something that lots of companies are hitting as a wall right now, because there are many solutions out there to do over-the-air update of different kind of devices, but there's so many different types of devices and real-time OSs or no OSs at all, that it's kind of hard to have one pane of glass that allows you to manage and deploy updates to a fleet of IoT devices seamlessly. There's none, actually. You need to compose your own solution with different third parties and DIY, and that's a really hard part that customers are facing. It does relate to security. Another big one, and I'm starting to look more forward in the future, is encryption. You want to secure your data transfers. It's not just about securing data at rest; it's also about securing data moving. And encryption is something that these devices are not really equipped for. They don't have the chips that allows them to encrypt, 256 bits keys and things like that. We're starting to see more and more of that. We're starting to see this kind of encryption modules that are coming to the embedded devices. But we're also seeing quantum computing arriving real fast, and people are starting to freak out, because once we are in that quantum computing era, these encryptions will be mute, will be useless, because they will be cracked easily by quantum computing machines. And so you're just thinking about it from the perspective of industrial espionage or things like that. You want to make sure your data is secured, your IP is secure, your business is secure. But is the future secure? And so you need to think about how you're doing things today to be ready for tomorrow. And that's more true for security than for anything else. We know that new threats are coming. We know that what they are. We don't exactly know yet how we're going to solve that problem for the realm of IoT, and make sure that the encryption keys resist this kind of compute, and that the data is safe.
Absolutely. You mentioned security and encryption. That really led me, a question just popped in my head, that can organizations securely integrate IoT devices? Because I've been hearing this a lot, that there are many sensitive and regulated environments, like in many healthcare and finance institutes. So
Yep.
is it like safe? Just for the sake of our audience, I want to ask this
Yes.
from you, that is it like, how can like our organization add
Yeah.
security when they're integrating IoT devices, especially for like sensitive and
Yes.
regulated environments?
The short answer is yes. You can make it safe and secure. You can. There are ways to do that. You need to comply with regulations. You need to follow the guidelines of the different vendors and service providers and hardware providers.
Yeah.
Good practices are what you need. You need to have a good development design. You need to have a good implementation. You need to invest the right amount. You also need to decide typically what needs to be sent to an other system or to the cloud from the edge or from a device, and what doesn't need to be sent. One of the reasons we're seeing more and more AI coming to the edge, there is obviously latency and data transfer volumes and so on, but there's also security. People want to keep their data on site, on the device, and they want to run machine learning algorithms on that data on the device directly. And that sorts some of the problem out, which is, hey, you don't need to send the data. So that device, when it's executing its ML on this data, doesn't need to be connected. So you're reducing the risk of exposing your data and your IP there. And what you can do is extract insights directly on a device and just send the result of the insight. And that's way less data, way less surface to attack for a hacker, and that's something you can secure way better. And then when it comes to good practices, encryption, authentication, all these mechanisms exist. Use them, and then follow practices. How many times have I seen people using, 529 certs to encrypt communication and authenticate device and never rotate the certs? If you don't rotate your keys, on these devices, then you're not really following the security best practices, and you're not really securing these devices to the extent where they can be secured. So really, you can make your IoT solution secured. You can integrate an IoT/OT solution into your enterprise network, into an IT infrastructure connected to the internet, as long as you follow these guidance and these precaution. You measure the risk you're taking, you understand it, and you follow these best practices. This is possible. This is not easy though. And this is why I joined force with Thing Zero, because I'm a strong believer that you need to educate people on how to do that properly, how to follow the right governance rules, to comply with the right regulations, and so forth. And so that's something that is not trivial. Once again, it adds a level of complexity to your systems and solutions, but it's doable.
Absolutely. Oliver, we are coming towards the end of this podcast, so we have two questions left. So one of them is that can you tell me what the most interesting or impactful consumer IoT advice or any applications you have like seen recently or you've been using?
Yeah. So that's interesting. You're saying consumer device, because to me, actually, the answer doesn't lie in consumer devices per se, as at least the way we know them, right? So when I'm asked, hey, what is the latest CES innovation you liked? I was like, none. I don't want to connect my fridge to the internet. I had an interesting set of interviews recently at IoT Stars in Nuremberg during Embedded World. I was getting some of the thought leaders of the industry on a live interview. And I was asking all of them, what is like the exact question you just asked me, which is, what is the most innovative or stupid or interesting device or IoT device you've ever seen? And they came up with really interesting solutions and ideas. Two of them really, I think make things move forward in a good way. One is this notion of a sensor embedded into cement in walls and structure, like pylons and things like that in big buildings. And these little tiny sensors running on a battery are able to send information about the actual health of the cement.
Nice.
And basically it will allow you to predict if there's going to be any cracking, and if the infrastructure is put at risk of not being solid, right? Very tiny sensor running on a battery, a little bit of information, a huge impact. Think about, like tall buildings that eventually could be at risk of being demolished because there's some cracking in the cement down there that you could have identified before it was visible, and you could fix ahead of time. Another interesting one is highlighting the fact that when you come up with a very innovative idea, you have something that could work. So a friend of mine was talking about this project, company that is proposing consumers to sell their data and make money out of it. The data would be data coming from attics, so measuring humidity, temperature, state of the roof, and things like that. The idea is to say, hey, consumer, do you want to install that little device in your attic, and we'll pay you. We'll pay you every month, like $20 or whatever. And the company deploying these devices is selling that data to roofing companies and other companies who really need to have this kind of data, but have no means to get it. They just go by statistics or by interviewing the customers or whatnot. Here, they have very concrete data from real life, addicts, from consumers, and the
They can
consumer.
really help, put that data into manufacturing. They are the roofing companies, they're the roofing manufacturing companies. Right?
Yes.
They could put that into use like real time.
Exactly. So there's value in that data. And as a consumer, what I found really fantastic in that solution, and tying it back to your comment about, consumer devices, a consumer can now start making money on a system that usually it's the other way around. Consumer, they give away their data without even realizing it. I'm thinking about Sidewalk and thinking about tons of these IoT consumer devices. I was talking about my fridge being connected. My fridge is a Samsung one. It happens to be connected. And you know what? Just because I'm a geek, I did connect it, but there's no value for me. I'm getting an alert when the fridge is open. Well, guess what? It will beep. I'm in the room. I know it's open. And so I don't need to have this connected fridge tell me that. And what's going on is that Samsung is using my data, my usage data, my fridge,
Mhm.
without me getting any cent on it, which is kind of a bummer, right? I could eventually try and monetize that data. And so that device that it was mentioning about attic, measuring, is super interesting because it opens up, it creates a new business model where consumers are benefiting from.
Absolutely, absolutely. That was a very interesting, insight and an example for it. Seriously, I have a fun question to ask you. If you can like wave a magic wand and just solve one major issue people are facing in IoT adoption and IoT integration, what would it be?
Yeah, I think the um, the one thing I would love to try and solve is to make sure people understand how to do IoT right. And that's a big topic. It's not just a one little tiny thing. But would love when I engage in conversation with customers just to go directly to the okay, let's do it rather than explaining everything. I know, and that's my bread and butter as well, that explaining it is needed and would be needed for some time. But I think it would be something really helpful that we don't have to explain what IoT is and how to do it right.
Yeah.
I love playing around with Arduinos and Raspberry Pis and so on. It's great. You do these DIY projects and spend a lot of time on that and having fun. But very often you end up with something that is maybe a proof of concept for a solution, but doesn't tackle the real problems, doesn't address them directly, or just leaves them aside as a we'll solve that problem later. And then you're back at square zero where you have to redo everything and create your solution from scratch with the right practices, the right solutions, because you didn't understand from the get-go these implications, the security ones, the over-the updates requirements, the all of them, right? So there's so many of them that there's not particular one I would make disappear. I would like to have people understand that they exist and that when they approach IoT, they keep them in mind from day one.
Yeah, absolutely. Oliver, we are at time. So the last question of this podcast. And to be honest, just I want to ask you very candidly, like, what do you see in future in the next 5 or 10 years? What excites you the most regarding embedded designs, and different devices as well?
Yeah. Well, personally, what excites me the most working in that domain is the fact that it applies to every industry out there.
Yeah.
You'll see IoT everywhere. You already see it everywhere. And so that means that I have the chance to work, with medical device companies and then with another company doing industrial cameras for factories. And then I will talk to someone doing consumer device, and so the diversity of solutions is what I'm really excited for. Another aspect of IoT that I think in the next 5 to 10 years will be even more important than anything else is how IoT can be used and should be used and is already starting to be used for with sustainability goals in mind. How do you save energy? How do you make sure that you have efficient processes that stop wasting? All these considerations, IoT is a key instrument into addressing these sustainability problems, and I'm thrilled to see that many companies are putting that in front, are saying that this is something that we want to do, especially IoT companies, and they're starting to use that sustainability topic as a marketing tool as well, which is to me a good sign. That means that people care, and that means that the technology is here to help you do that. And that's what excites me the most about IoT, I guess, in the next 5 to 10 years.
Absolutely. And, just while you were talking about sustainability and, um, HyperNym is really at the forefront of developing IoT solutions for ESG and for different enterprises to uh, two step ahead in their sustainability goals. And we have like done many solutions that could help us drive sustainability through data driven different applications when it comes to smart buildings, when it comes to running fleet management systems. So I'm really happy, I'm really looking forward to this amazing future of IoT together,
Yep.
with all these goals. Yeah. So thank you so much, Oliver. Thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing your valuable insights about the world of IoT. It has truly been an enlightening conversation. I believe it has been for many of us, and
Okay.
I really appreciate your time and expertise.
Well, thanks for inviting me, and everyone, happy IoT Day.
Definitely happy IoT Day. And to our viewers, thank you for tuning in and thank you for celebrating the World IoT Day with us. We'll be back soon with another episode, diving deeper into other technologies, and other devices that are shaping our connected future. So stay tuned to us and have a great day. Bye bye.
Bye.